This is something that happened a long time ago. So long ago that a lot of the details are kind of blurry now. It's not like it happened yesterday, but I'll do my best to share every little part I remember, even the ones that aren't completely clear anymore. It was the last day of school. I was in 4th grade, which was the final grade at our primary school. That meant all the kids had to be picked up by a parent or guardian. Starting in 5th grade, you could walk home on your own. My mom always picked me up on the last day. My friend Dennis and I had made plans to hang out after school to celebrate. He wasn't in my class that year, but we'd been friends since kindergarten. He came out of a different hallway than I did. When the final bell rang, we all lined up at the back doors of the school, where our teacher, Miss Blue, waited with us until someone came to pick each kid up. I started scanning the crowd of parents for Dennis's dad. That's when I heard someone call my name. Tommy, Tommy. I looked up and saw a man waving and walking quickly toward me. He told me he was Dennis's uncle and that he was there to pick me up. I walked over to Miss Blue and told her that someone had come for me. She asked, "Where are they, sweetheart?" And I pointed at the man. He gave her a quick wave and she let me go with him. The man talked fast and nervously, like every word was being rushed out. He walked quickly too, and I had trouble keeping up, especially with my heavy backpack. He told me that Dennis's dad had gotten stuck at work and that he'd be taking me home. We reached a small red hatchback car. That's when the first weird thought crossed my mind. Wait, where's Dennis? Aren't we picking him up? The man said Dennis was already at his house. I was a shy kid, especially around adults, and not the type to ask a lot of questions. But something didn't feel right. The more we drove, the more confused I got. He kept chatting about school, my favorite game, stuff like that. Looking back, I think we were in the car for around 10 minutes. That was strange. Our town was small, and my house was just 5 minutes from the school on foot. The house looked normal from the outside, but the moment we stepped in, something felt off. It was dark, too dark for daytime. All the curtains were drawn shut, and only a dim lamp in one corner lit the living room. He locked the door behind us. "Where's Dennis?" I asked. He looked surprised, like he forgot to cover that part of the story. "Oh, he's probably downstairs playing video games. Hang tight, I'll go check." He disappeared through a nearby room and opened another door. I heard footsteps going down a set of stairs. My heart was pounding. I just knew something was wrong. I walked over to the front door and tried the handle. Locked tight. It was one of those locks that needed a key to open. I was shaking. Still, I had a little sliver of hope that maybe Dennis really was downstairs. But then something clicked in my head. I headed for the kitchen and saw a phone hanging on the wall. I picked up the receiver and dialed 911. When the operator answered, I whispered, "Please come to this house. I've been kidnapped." I didn't say anything else. I just placed the phone under a towel on the counter and went back to the living room. I heard footsteps upstairs again. The man called out, "Come down here, Tommy. Dennis is here." A few moments later, he came back upstairs and smiled. "Everything okay?" he asked. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Can I go home now?" His fake smile faded. He walked toward me slowly, grabbed my arm and started leading me toward the basement. I screamed as loud as I could. He hissed, "If you be quiet and behave, I'll let you go." I froze and stopped screaming. He took me downstairs. As soon as we reached the basement, he slammed the door shut and locked it from the outside. The basement was bare. Just a single support column, concrete floor, and one dim yellow bulb overhead. It felt like a nightmare. A while later, he opened the door again. "You hungry?" he asked. "No," I said instantly. I didn't want him to go near the kitchen and find the phone. He shut and locked the door again. I sat there on the cold floor, heart in my throat. Then, I heard it. The doorbell rang 3 times. Then loud, heavy knocks. It was the police. I stayed quiet until I heard the door burst open, followed by heavy footsteps and shouting. "Help! Help!" I screamed. An officer opened the basement door and pulled me out. There were 3 police cars outside. They had me explain everything until my parents showed up. The man was arrested right there, taken away in handcuffs. That was the last time I ever saw him. Later, we found out he wasn't Dennis's uncle at all. He was a co-worker of Dennis's dad, and somehow he knew Dennis's dad was picking us up that day. He took advantage of the situation. I still don't know how he knew what I looked like. As I got older, I stopped asking too many questions. I didn't want to know more. My mom took me to therapy for months after that. My parents had no kind words for Miss Blue, who let me go with someone without making sure I actually knew them. If I hadn't called the police, I probably wouldn't be alive today. This all happened about 17 years ago. That man might be out of prison by now. I know it was junior year of high school, and it was the last day of school. A lot of people cut school this day or left early after lunch, period, my friends, and I were some of the latter. It was a stormy, dark day. A bunch of people from our grade originally planned to hit the beach on the last day of school, but that was obviously canceled. So my smaller core group of friends decided to do something else. There used to be an abandoned elementary school in town that hadn't been used for like 10 years. There were plans to tear it down by the year's end, so still wanting to do something fun on the last day of school, we all agreed to break into the building and just around exploring. There were no cameras in that old building, and on a stormy day, no one would be outside monitoring the place or anything. So we all left after lunch, period. Our friend Eddie already had a car and his license, so he drove us all to the abandoned school. The school was in the middle of a neighborhood, not in any main roads or anything. There was back parking lot covered by overgrown bushes and trees on one side, and the walls of the school on 2 other sides. It was a perfect spot to park, and noticed the place wasn't boarded up or anything. It was just locked up. Eddie had a baseball bat in his trunk that he took out to smash one of the windows of the school. I was honestly so nervous that even through the pouring rain, one of the houses over the fence would hear the smashing sound. We all watched and nervously laughed as Eddie swung the bait into the window in front of the car, and after a few good swings, smashing it, he pushed away the straight pieces of glass stuck to the frame with a bat. And then he waved us over. We one by one climbed through the window into the school. My logic was that the school was being torn down anyway. What is a broken window? Matter we all were inside the building. Now, the window we climbed through was actually one of the windows for a classroom. A lot of stuff was still left in the room, including the desks and some decorations on the walls. Based on the decorations, It looked like we were in a 4th or 5th grade classroom. It was very surreal to be inside of what was once an active classroom where little kids would come to learn now. Nothing but a cold, dark, and abandoned room, collecting dust waiting to be destroyed. The sounds of thunder and lightning outside also added to the surreal feeling of it all. There were no lights on in the building. Power to the place was likely cut completely. We anticipated this, though the flashlights on our phones were plenty to get around and see. Even without them, it wasn't completely pitch black in there, as even though it was a dark day, some light was still creeping in through the windows. And doors we started traversing the hallways, going from room to room. Each classroom was still full of desks and chairs that hadn't been sat in probably a decade. We all 4 were in the same classroom, when there was a sound that echoed down the hallway and into the classroom. We went silent and turned off our lights for a moment. After a flash of lightning, we slowly accepted that it was probably nothing. So we continued on. We just went from room to room, as our wet shoes all squeaked on the floors. Sneaking around wasn't possible, really. A lot of things in the school were visibly decaying. You could really tell no one had stepped foot in there in ages. As we neared the corner of the hall, I turned around just to look back down the other way, and at the doorway of one of the classrooms it looked like there was something sticking out from the classroom. I asked my friends to also look. Their lights would maybe help see what it was, when all 4 of us were pointing our phone flashlights toward the door. Whatever that thing we were seeing was retracted into the classroom. All 4 of us quietly went, "Oh," amongst ourselves, and we started running down the intersecting hallway. We stopped when we were far enough away. It seemed we were in the kindergarten wing now. Then we heard another sound echo from down the hallway. It seemed we weren't alone, but who could be in here was the question. The place was locked up and every light in the building was off. The sound scared us into going into the first classroom we could find and shutting the door. It was indeed a kindergarten classroom. We were now concerned we'd get in trouble, so we waited in silence with our flashlights off. The rain was still coming down hard, and there was still thunder and lightning crashing every 20 seconds or so. Suddenly, the door to the classroom clicked open and someone pushed it as it eerily creaked to a fully open position. We didn't see anyone at the doorway though, and the hallway was almost pitch black. We all tried our best to stay quiet, and then slowly something appeared through the doorway. It was the shape of a head. We all saw it, and when there was another flash of lightning, we saw what it was. It was, in fact, someone's head looking into the classroom directly at us. I started apologizing for all of us, saying we're leaving. The person at the doorway didn't move. They motionlessly and almost lifelessly just peered around the doorway in the classroom. Eddie asked, "Do you work here?" No response Eddie had to this moment. Clearly, he handed me the bat as he struggled to unlock one of the windows to slide it open, just enough to crawl through. He crawled out first, then me other 2 friends, and I was the last before I crawled out. I looked back one more time at the head at the doorway. I crawled through as quickly as I could, fearing I'd hear the person run up behind me and grab my legs. Once I was out, I ran to catch up with my friends, who were already booking it back to Eddie's car. We drove out of there in a hurry and never looked back. The building was torn down later that year and has since been turned into a park. We never got in trouble for breaking. Into this day, we have no idea If that was some kind of worker or just some random person, either way, it was extremely creepy behavior on their part. When I was in 7th grade, there was a kid in my homeroom named Sven. To put it simply, he was kind of weird. He was one of those kids who didn't really talk to anyone, even though people did try to include him sometimes. I didn't have him in every class, but from what I remember, he always sat in the exact same spot, opposite corner from the door. Every single day, without fail, he wore the same thing: cargo shorts and an oversized burgundy hoodie. He didn't talk much, but whenever he was asked to read or answer a question, his voice was deep. Unnaturally deep for someone our age. Kids used to make fun of him for it all the time. I don't recall him having any friends, and to be honest, it made sense. One time, my friend Tyler caught him during recess biting insects behind the school. He got detention for it, I think. Sven always kept to himself during recess, standing alone by the fence at the back of the school, the one that bordered the woods. He never played, never ran around like the rest of us. He just stood there like he was waiting for someone, or talking to someone. Some of my friends swore they saw him talking to someone on the other side of the fence, but I never saw it myself, so I won't lie. Anyway, all of this is just the setup for what I really want to tell you. This happened on the last day of school. My middle school was pretty big. Each grade had multiple classes. So, on the final day, there was this unofficial tradition. Kids would sneak into other classrooms to mess around and surprise teachers. I think the teachers knew it was coming and just played along for the kids' sake. I don't remember the exact time, but I ended up in one of the classrooms Sven was in. Everything felt normal at first, but Sven seemed off, more than usual. He kept stomping his foot, hard, again and again. That wasn't something he ever did before. And he kept looking around the room, shifting his eyes like he was watching someone or waiting for something. I don't think he was looking at me, but I wasn't sure either. Something else weird. There were a lot of kids in that room I'd never seen before. 1 or 2 new faces was normal, but this was way more than that. Then Miss Bell, our teacher, told us to split into groups of 3 or 4 to work on a year-end reflection worksheet. It wasn't serious. Most kids just used it as an excuse to talk. After a few minutes, Miss Bell picked up the phone and turned her back to the class. Not long after, another teacher, maybe from next door, walked in. They stood by the door and started whispering to each other. It didn't last long, but it was strange, like they were hiding something. Then, without explanation, they started walking up to a few kids and quietly told them something. Those kids stood up and left the room. Nobody made a big deal of it, but something felt off. Miss Bell came back to her desk and sat down like nothing had happened. Then the fire alarm went off. Miss Bell didn't even flinch. She just told us to line up and head out, like she knew it was going to happen. We all made our way outside to the field. Just out of habit, I turned and looked back at the school building. And for a split second, I saw something move in one of the second-floor windows. It could have been a shadow or a reflection, but something about it felt wrong. The school was supposed to be empty. Then we heard the sirens. Police cars, a lot of them, pulled up, and officers rushed into the school. Later, we were told the school would be closing early and that we had to call our parents to pick us up. When I got home, my parents told me what the school had said. Apparently, a group of kids, who weren't students, had somehow gotten into the building. The rumor was they were planning to set the school on fire. Miss Bell had supposedly seen something suspicious in one of their bags, something dangerous. So, instead of panicking the students, they pulled the fire alarm and evacuated everyone. But here's the part that messed me up. My mom said the school had identified who let them in through the back fence. It was Sven. I never saw him again after that day. And honestly, it all still feels like a dream.